Hello, everyone. I suck at intros with videos like this because I don't do interviews anymore. But with recent events happening, I'm going to call them events, with efforts towards a grassroots rise in a format that I used to know and love, that I think many of you do as well. I've made it a joke at the end of a couple of my videos and TikToks, but I saw that there was an actual effort being made to bring it back into its official status. I don't want to bury the lead here. We're talking tiny leaders today. And today I'm talking with a fellow guest, new friend of mine, who's kind of making the effort to push this grassroots event as part of a group. And so I want to let her just kind of take the chance to introduce herself. Cosmerian, go for it.
Hey, I'm a Cosmerian, and I am one of the many members of the Tiny Leaders Discord and one of the few members of the Tiny Leaders Reborn Rules Committee, where we are trying to make a push to get Tiny Leaders Reborn back into the view of things. Tiny Leaders, as older heads are probably familiar with, was a big thing for a very short amount of time where it kind of went into the public eye and then just kind of faded right out of it. And so around that time, after it had died, Tiny Leaders Reborn was made, which is essentially Tiny Leaders, except better. Remade to work and to actually be a interesting and diverse and competitive and fun format.
I love it. I love it. And just to get it out of the way, we are in no way, some of you already are aware of what Tiny Leaders is to a certain degree. We are in no way trying to replace Commander, be better than a format or anything like that. We're trying to just give you a new way to play Magic. I think, you know, Cosmerian, you may agree or disagree, but I find that a lot of people have, you know, including myself, something to complain about with Magic all the time and are always looking for a new avenue, at least to play the cards that they have. And Tiny Leaders just acts as that avenue through
absolutely
level of familiarity, something new, and just a combination of all. So I'm going to let you kind of guide us as we kind of talk through some of it. But this video overall, this interview, for those of you watching, is going to serve as an introduction, an informative guide, and maybe a jumping off point for Tiny Leaders, and hopefully get every one of you to join the Discord, subscribe to the channel, and be a part of this movement. You know, we're hoping that it does get somewhere. And I know that we're going to talk about it later on, but from the history of Tiny Leaders, we have some very well-known names in the Magic and Wizards of the Coast scene that were originally part of Tiny Leaders that I'm hoping we can use this video to kind of push out. But also, in all fairness, before someone asks me why I'm pushing a small format, I have nothing to gain out of this. I used to love Tiny Leaders. I have a Saheeli Rye Tiny Leaders deck somewhere behind me. It's somewhere behind me.
Amazing.
But I think it's because I had a Sensei's Dividing Top that was the most expensive card I had at a time, and I don't know, it's somewhere behind me. Regardless, anyway, let's hop right into talking about the format. Cosmerian, what is Tiny Leaders for those of us that are unaware of such a good format?
So yeah, Tiny Leaders, I did mention it earlier, there are two Tiny Leaders. There's Tiny Leaders and Tiny Leaders Reborn. And so Tiny Leaders Reborn is what we're dealing with, but they are two very similar formats with some key differences. The main crux of it is that Tiny Leaders has two main elements. On one hand, it's kind of Commander, but everything's chopped in half. So it is a Commander variant format. So you have still a Commander, you have all the Commander singleton color identity restrictions going on with deck building, but instead of 100 cards, you have 50 cards. And instead of 40 life, you have 20 life. And instead of it being 4-player, it's usually 1v1. You can technically, if you want to, play it with a full pod of 4 people, but the rules and ban list and all that is built for 1v1 gameplay. The second part of what makes Tiny Leaders is that every single card in your deck has to be of mana value 3 or less. So you don't have to deal with those crazy cards like the Evoke Elementals. Well, save for Endurance, but you know.
Wow.
All right,
card. Gosh damn it! All right.
Yeah.
I just realized I can't escape that even in this format. Fine.
Well, it's way worse when you can only have one of them in there.
Fair enough.
And then you don't have to deal with Shieldred if you just hate dealing with Shieldred or the One Ring or any of those like really high tier cards that are just out of that range of what Tiny Leaders allows.
Right.
And yeah, essentially it is just a 1v1 experience where if you like Commander, if you like Legacy, it's kind of the best of both worlds, in my opinion.
Right.
Where you can have this interesting, engaging, fast-paced 1v1 competitive gameplay without dealing with the nonsense of modern Legacy and just weird and scary brews.
Yeah.
And if you're a Commander player and you're tired of the long games and having to build a deck that will not stop falling over because it's so huge, Tiny Leaders is that. And you just have nice, snappy gameplay. Everything's action all the time. It's just a great time for players that want something a little bit different if they're coming from other formats, but still kind of have the core identity of what makes Magic so fun.
Right. And I appreciate all that, like kind of touching on everything. So, going over that high point of, having everything be a converted mana cost 3 or less. So not even just the commander, the tiny leader, if you will, but also the cards in your deck being converted mana cost 3 or less. And it being a 1v1 format versus a multiplayer format, allowing the dynamic of maybe something closer to 60 card constructed and or CEDH, where everything is more efficient, but also allowing for the singleton creativity element of things. I think there's a really interesting blend of this. There's a little bit of everything for everyone. And yes, I think initially a lot of people are going to be turned away from the fact that this isn't multiplayer. It feels like another single player format. But again, if, two things, we aren't trying to, again, replace Commander. This is a analog. This is another format. This is another way for you to enjoy some of the things you already are enjoying. Another format where you can access different tools and limitations that breed creativity. And I think you can speak to that as well. That's what these limitations are. We have so many cards in Magic right now. It feels like there's so many legendaries every set. There's so many tiny leaders, if you will, that come about in every set. And so with that, I do also want to promote the differentiation that you brought up as well, that you are Tiny Leaders Reborn and not necessarily the OG Tiny Leaders. You have similarities, but this is an effort to kind of push maybe a slightly different rule set, albeit create the pillars, the basis that we got off the original format. So why don't we touch base on this from a history perspective, if you will, and I can try and fill in some of the gaps of research that I have as well. First, we're going to go over the general history and then your history with it. What is the general history of Tiny Leaders from its conception to now? Why did it work? Why didn't it work? Let's go through all of it. Cosmerian,
so initially Tiny Leaders started as a variant of, it was born in French Dual Commander. So we're already talking about a variant of a variant, right? So we're going from Commander to Dual Commander, from Dual Commander to Tiny Leaders. And so I can't exactly speak to why exactly they wanted to have that shift beyond the fact that Dual Commander, I know that when I wanted to check in on Dual Commander, because I think it's very similar in many ways to Tiny Leaders, I just kind of look at Tiny Leaders and its ban list, and then I look at Dual Commander and its ban list and see, oh wow, there's just a lot of cards on Dual Commander's ban list.
Right.
And just a lot of stuff that I don't want to be checking every time I build a deck.
Right.
But basically, Tiny Leaders is that way to simplify things in a way.
And in
from
many
there,
ways,
yeah.
like Dual Commander, for those of you that don't know, is an official format that's on MTG.
Oh, yeah.
Like there are league dumps and top decks and a metagame. There already is 1v1 Commander being played.
Yes.
To actually, maybe not a high level, but a popular level. We have statistics and data, numbers, people, on 1v1 Commander. So, but yeah, go on.
And so basically Tiny Leaders was born in, I believe, around 2013, 2014, and kind of exploded in popularity as this new cool thing with a cool idea, and ended up being played in a bunch of places, but then very quickly, I believe just about a year later, dying out almost completely. And that was due to what people felt was the biggest complaint that people had was that it felt like a solved metagame.
Right.
And where there was these like 3 or 4 tier 1 decks, and there was no tier 2. And so you had tier 1 and tier 3 where you were either playing the top decks or you weren't playing.
Right.
And so that kind of killed off the format. And I think part of that was due to kind of it being a relic of its time, where that was before Wizards started accelerating the speed at which they make sets and catering towards Commander and stuff like that, where there wasn't that many Commanders and that many options for the format. And now that's just not true, where you have it set every 3 months, which is ridiculous. Sometimes sooner, but it's ridiculous. But it also, the silver lining is that Tiny Leaders Reborn is nowhere near that solved metagame, because there's just new cards coming out all the time, so that even if there is a chance for the metagame to be quote unquote solved, the new cards just shake that up every 3 months. So that's really nice. But basically, getting back to 10 years ago, Tiny Leaders died, and from its ashes, Tiny Leaders Reborn was reborn. Basically, you had the small group of people that thought, we could make Tiny Leaders, but better. And so Tiny Leaders Reborn had a lot of the same core ideas. They are both 1v1 50 card formats with that same mana value restriction. The main difference is they pushed it from 25 life down to 20 life. So you now are dealing with less life, so that aggro's a more viable strategy. There was a mana restriction as well as a color restriction in Tiny Leaders Original, where you could only play cards of 3 colors, commanders of 3 colors. And so any 5-color commander, any partner commanders that gave you access to 4 colors were just outright not allowed. And while there is a fair argument to be made that that was the right call. However, it was also just stifling the format unnecessarily. And so if there is a problem card, just banning that card instead of the whole idea of that card is generally the approach that the Tiny Leaders Committee has been taking in TLR.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and we also there was a weird partner rule in Tiny Leaders Original, where you could have 2 partners, but you could only play 1 partner in the whole game during the match, where basically you could still have the partners, but you can only cast 1 in a match. And so now that's been solved to basically saying, okay, if you have 2 commanders, you start with a mulligan of 1, basically. So because commanders are absolutely powerful, they are this extra free card advantage that you just start the game with. Instead of starting with 8 cards with 7 cards in hand and a commander, you start with 9 cards.
Right.
And so that was a legitimate worry and a legitimate concern. And so they, instead of the weird kind of counterintuitive ruling of you can only cast one of the commanders, it is you can cast both commanders, but you start the game having 2 mulligans. So you can keep your starting 7, but you'll have to put 1 card on the bottom.
Okay.
And so that means that you still have those 8 cards available to you. It's just not as convoluted as the original Tiny Leaders was.
Yeah.
And so if anybody is used to CEDH, one of the biggest problems with CEDH is that everything is partner commanders because of that free advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And here, that's just not the case, which is really nice. There are still partner commanders that are good, like Yoshimaru Rograk as a strong Boros shell is still great in the format. It's probably arguably the best Boros commander. However, there are now quite a few competitors.
Right.
But past that, you really don't have to deal with partners all that much.
Okay.
And so that's really nice.
Okay.
And
no, I was gonna say I really like how we kind of made that actually in a really balanced way where one of those things that's always gets brought up with companions, which I want to hop into in a second, where it's that extra resource in your hand, and that was a great way to balance it in a format that is hyper efficient, where in Commander you have so many more resources and a larger rule zero conversation when it comes to a multiplayer setting, but in a 1v1 setting where everything is about eking out the minuscule advantages, kind of trying to make that even is always an interesting game design problem, especially this just extends beyond play draw stuff where the person playing first plays a resource, the first person on the draw gets a card first. How do you balance that when you have 2 commanders, which, as you mentioned, is the 8th card? So how do you balance that? And I think this is a really interesting way to do that. Now, when it comes to even 5 colors, you were mentioning having commanders or tiny leaders of multiple colors. You have single, double, triple, and quad, but to my knowledge, there's only one 5-color tiny leader, and that's a Sika, God of the Tree. Am I wrong in thinking that?
So basically, this is following commander rules. So it is color identity that matters. And so one of the top decks that's been a top deck for a while is Najila, because Najila has a 5-mana activated ability. And so is a 5-color commander.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And so you have quite a few 5-color commanders, and they do well. But it's the type of thing where, they've never been that format stifling, right? There's the price that you have to pay for 5 colors is that usually your commander is not going to be doing all that much. Like Najila obviously is a powerful card and has the ability to just win the game if left unchecked.
Right.
But while there have been moments where it's been the top of the format and it's still very much a tier 1 deck, there are plenty of competitors of just commanders that have tighter synergies.
Okay. And when it comes to, I guess, these commanders themselves, one thing I think a lot of people are going to talk about is, with Commander itself, there is the quote unquote self-regulation of the bracket system, right? So you have different levels of decks being played against each other, and people are able to balance against each other based on comfort level and the type of game that they want to play. And in a situation like this where it's 1v1 and we're already talking about kind of eking out advantage and balancing things between both players, is this the type of format where people are trying to play the most powerful thing in the room? They're playing the Moxes and everything, or whether or not that's on the ban list is a different discussion, but just the most powerful 0 and 1s. Or is there a separation system, especially in a format where I imagine it's proxy friendly, we're unofficial and everything?
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of through leagues and everything. With those proxies, are you finding that there is a way to differentiate between the high power 1v1 super competitive, or is it really that people are trying to do the most powerful thing in the room? How do you find the format is playing?
So I think one of the things I think that, like, for example, the Discord is very much competitively geared. Okay. There is a lot of people that are playing at that top level and trying to make the best deck they can. Mm-hmm. However, it is, in essence, still a commander variant format. And with a commander format, you are going to have people that want to create more casual decks that are more about doing something interesting than doing something good.
Right.
And so I kind of always have to remind people on the server that are playing competitively that this isn't an inherently competitive format. Sure, the ban list and the rules and stuff are geared to be like geared towards the competitive audience, but that's just because the more casual players don't have to worry about the ban list. They can rule zero things. They can decide this is fine, this is not. While the rules are built for 1v1, you can play in multiplayer, and that just means you have less to deal with on the ban list because there are cards that are really good in 1v1, like White Bloom Adventurer is banned in the format because the initiative's a stupid mechanic in 1v1 specifically. But in 3-player or 4-player, it's not an issue, and so you could totally play with White Bloom Adventurer as long as everybody else is fine with it.
Right.
And so you are free to explore. I am someone that does play at a competitive level, but I'm also always brewing up silly and interesting things. Tarkir is my absolute favorite plane, and I started the game in 2015 with Tarkir block being freshly out.
Right.
And so that has always been my plane of choice. And so when Tarkir Dragonstorm came out, I tried to brew with pretty much every color that was allowed. And so I made some less than optimal decks because they're just neat and fun. And you can certainly get other people that want to play less optimal decks and more casual decks.
Right.
And so there is this dichotomy of a lot of people do want to play it competitively and want to play it like the Legacy Light environment that the competitive format is.
Right.
But it is a commander variant. You can do whatever you want as long as your pod, the people that you're playing with, are fine with that. And that's one of the things I love about it, is that there's this just nice dichotomy that isn't like, the miles of difference between CEDH and EDH.
Right. Yeah, you can still get your competitive fix if you want to, and it almost kind of naturally leans that way, but it also helps hone in the brews, right? So a lot of times what happens in Commander is, people come in with the brew and it might just be a little, unfocused, but when it comes to tiny leaders, because everything is converted mana cost 3 or less, like, you're naturally playing the more efficient things.
Yes.
You're naturally playing to a smaller curve where you are going to be able to play out your more powerful things and do something every turn instead of just going land pass, here's a ramp spell, land pass, whatever.
That is absolutely what I love about the format, is that it is just much snappier than Commander, where Commander, you have at those lower levels, the first 4 turns are pretty much consistently nothing burgers of land pass, or maybe land of War Elves or Soul Ring or whatever pass, and you don't have that engaging right off the bat you're doing something.
Right.
And so Tiny Leaders is that, and that 50 cards really helps hone both the competitive nature of things and the brews, where you need less cards to make a consistent synergy. Where in Commander, you need like somewhere between 6 and 10 cards to consistently have the thing that you want to happen.
Right.
In Tiny Leaders, you only need like 4.
Right.
And so you can actually make brews easier if there's only 4 good cards that do a certain thing.
Look,
and
this seems like an excuse for people to play less lands. And you know what? I've always been a fan of telling people to play more damn lands. In Constructed, in Commander, not enough people play lands. Commander players are always telling me in my comment section how they're getting away with, Shaw, if I play 25 lands in my bracket 3 deck, I don't want to play with you. I know you're gonna sit down at the table with me and complain about how you're never drawing your lands, you're never finding them. And in Constructed, it's always the mid-range players, always the control players that never want to go past like 20 hands. You will never be able to cast your spells. That's your problem. It seems like you made a format where people can justify playing less lands. How do you comment?
Essentially, yes. So the general land count is between 16 and 18 lands in this 50 card deck.
Like mathematically, that's correct. I agree.
Yes, mathematically, it is great.
But I know there's people out here that are gonna truth me at 10 lands. Tell me there's a 10 land deck somewhere.
I have made a 10 land deck.
Oh no, I don't want to hear it.
No, it is one of my favorite decks because it is so stupid. What it is I have made a Grist the Hunger Tide deck where you have 10 lands and 39 bugs.
Wait.
And the goal is just to get down Grist turn 2 and then uptick to flip 10 bugs off the top and beat your opponent that way.
Hold on.
It is a beautiful monstrosity of a deck.
There's something I'm looking at right now. Okay, modern. Yes, Court of Calling has a converted mana cost of 3. Yes, we can do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay, fine. You win. The format wins. X. Yes. I love them. All right, great.
Yes, X spells perfectly allowed. This is actually perfectly segueing into some of the little weird mana cost confusions that is going on.
Go on.
And I will be, I think, in the next 2 videos, because I have a YouTube channel. That's the thing that's
going to be
just made,
folks.
Yeah.
Go subscribe. Go leave a like on all of the videos that have come out since this video.
Yes.
It'll probably just be the 2, but you know.
Yes, there's 2 videos, but there's going to be way more in the future. And so in like the next 2 videos, we are going to be doing a like thorough breakdown of the small little things about the rules of the format. So like one of the small little quirks is that planeswalkers are legal as a commander no matter what. So you can have just planeswalkers be your commander, even if it's not like Grist or Aminato, which are still admittedly most of the planeswalkers that are built to be a commanders are good as commander. But you have stuff like recently, I know you are that mill guy, so you know, having mill decks is your thing. Or at least I sure hope it is.
Ashiok Nightmare Weaver.
So Ashiok Dream Render is actually a bit too good for the format, so it's banned as commander.
No way! Stop.
Yes.
So I'm coming at this with not looking at the ban list at all. I wanted to come in fresh.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get there.
So, oh my god. All right. That makes me so happy, though. That makes me really happy.
Because turn 1 Ashiok to turn off all your fetch lands is generally not fun to play against.
Yo, Swamp Dark Ritual? Everyone in the comment section this part of the video, what is your Dark Ritual play in Tiny Leaders off of a Swamp Dark Ritual? Comment it down below. Go on, Cosmerian.
But basically, around 2 months ago, we have a group of people that are doing paper Tiny Leaders, with actually quite powerful prizes. One of the So this is a group in Northern California that are playing paper Tiny Leaders. They've gotten a band of like 3 different local game stores in Northern California that are organizing Tiny Leaders events. And one of their, so they're called Reborn Rumbles, and the recent poster, I don't know if I should send it over and link it to you, but essentially it is the reward is a revised Badlands if you win. So,
oh my god, the EV is crazy.
There are real prizes out there for Tiny Leaders fans as long as you're in Northern California.
Full proxy?
But so those events, those paper events are not proxied.
Okay.
But they have like a system where, I have no idea how this works, but where you can borrow people's like true duels and stuff, which is a thing that people have decided to do.
Okay.
I'm not rich enough to have true duels, so you know, I don't know how I would feel about lending my true duels out to people, but apparently, folks, that is a thing that happens, and it helps make it a lot cheaper to play fully unproxied. However, that is the admittedly exception to the format. For the most part, we're very proxy friendly.
Right.
And over on the Discord server, which we'll get to, like how to play and where to play. but we use Cockatrice, which is just a free program.
Right.
That means that essentially everything is proxied because you don't have to pay a cent for your true duels and stuff like that.
Okay.
But basically, it is a format with real tournaments and real prizes. And yeah,
I love it. I love it. So let's, before we go into how we play, let's round some things off in terms of balance in the ban list. And we've talked a little bit about this already. We've thrown it out there. Talk to me about the Tiny Leaders Reborn ban list. What does it include?
Okay.
What are some notable cards on it? I'll probably leave a link down below, at least if not the Discord. But what's going on in the ban list? What are the thoughts behind what needs to go?
So there's basically a few different waves of what it was put in the ban list. So originally, there was an initial ban list that was basically grandfathered in from when the format was originally created. So there's a lot of cards that have never actually seen the light of day in the format. Now, some of them are for good reason. But basically, this is things that people that wanted to make the format decided, you know what, that's probably a bit too good.
Okay.
And so those cards are banned. Like something like Edric, Spymaster of Trest has never seen the light of day, has always been banned from the very beginning.
Okay. Can
it be unbanned? Maybe. Maybe.
Right.
But it's the type of thing where, you know, there's a reason why it started off banned. And so there would need to be a good reason to get it off the ban list.
Right.
And with that, the Power 9 are banned. You don't have to deal with the Power 9. We have a big thing about fast mana of, this is a fast format, sure, but you don't get Moxen, you don't get Black Lotus. It is the sort of format where if you want mana, while you can't, like Dark Ritual, perfectly legal. You can totally play Dark Ritual. You can play, you know, some amount of fast mana. The Lotus Petal, for example, totally an option, but you're not getting it for free, like with Moxen.
Right.
Now, the most recent Moxen, you know, is legal. Mox.
Amber?
The Dragon Mox.
Yeah. Mox, Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, Mox Jasper.
Yeah, Mox Jasper. That's legal. There's not a lot of dragons at 3 mana or less, but you know, it's an option. It is the only Mox that is currently legal.
Hey, hold on. There's a crap ton of changelings. So that
technically speaking.
Yeah.
Although you can only get 1 Mox, so
fair enough.
You know.
Okay.
But so there's that like initial thing. Some of the free crazy spells like Fierce Guardianship and Deflecting Swat, those are banned.
Okay.
Although there is some funny ones. So Court of Cunning is banned because
the one?
Yes, the mill one. Because if you're the Monarch, having each player mill 10 cards turns the game into essentially a 4-turn clock. And so hard control decks.
The mill players solved it too fast. I'm out of this format. We solved it too fast.
No, I mean, hey, there is plenty of mill still going on.
Yeah.
In the format, you just have to work a little bit for it. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is also one of the cards that people look at and go, I see why that is banned, but that's really funny that it's on the ban list.
No, that's what I was thinking of. That's one of the first cards. I'm like, I'm gonna eat this
because that gets rid of like 2/3 of your deck. It is insane. So it's on the ban list. Yes.
I love it.
I mean, mill is still. The funny thing is that there's not been a lot of mill decks. The tools for mill are there. Ashiok Dreamweaver, for example, or Nightmare Weaver, whatever the Nightmare Weaver. There's too many Ashioks.
Yeah.
Nightmare Weaver got second place about 2 months ago. Now I don't know if it was mill or control, but you know, there's mill there.
Yeah.
And it's 50 cards. So how hard can milling be?
Yeah. I mean, if I was playing Ashiok Nightmare Weaver as my tiny leader, I would probably play the hardest control deck of my life because I have my deck, and now thanks to Ashiok, I have your deck. So
Yes.
I don't need to do anything more fancy than that.
Yes. So, yeah, the ban list is fairly healthy. When we changed, so it didn't, Tiny Leaders Reborn didn't start out with the partner rule that it had. It still had the normal partner rule, but people thought this is stupid. Let's make it a better partner rule. And so we changed the partner rule. Very quickly, people realized that Jessica Thrice Reborn is a stupid Magic card because having a one-sided board wipe in the command zone is bonkers. I can see you scrunching your face as to what exactly this card is.
Hey, yo, enters the battlefield with a loyalty counter on it. Each time you cast it, okay, choose target. Wait, whoa. Oh my God. X
it was.
It doesn't even split. You just choose X and you hit it.
Yup.
Oh, okay. Wow.
It got banned. Admittedly, a bit slower than it should have been, but it got banned.
Okay.
And so there are some cards like that, like Fourth Aerlingus was banned about in October of last year.
Yeah, that makes
because
sense.
It's just a ridiculous card. You can, if you really want to. The initiative is still in the format, technically. If you want, Dungeoneer's Pack is the one other card that gives you the initiative. And it is only good.
4 mana, or am I?
No, it is a 3 mana artifact. It is the only other card that is 3 mana or less that gives you the initiative.
Yeah,
White Plume
really
Adventurer
expensive.
is banned.
Yeah, they're really expensive. Yeah.
Yes. But if you really, really want to, you can play a 3 mana artifact that enters tapped, and then for 3 mana can give you the initiative. But that is only in the hardest of hard control decks that you can really get away with that.
Okay, hold on. So I'm just now mentally thinking about how I can do something dumb in this format, and Balustrade Spy is not allowed. But okay, Undercity Informer. Where is Undercity Informer in this?
Let me check.
Because I can play Elvish Spirit Guide, I can play Sibian Spirit Guide. Well, I don't know if they're banned, to be fair.
No, those are legal, yes.
Okay.
So you could totally play that if you want to. I think the problem is that this is a singleton format, right? So you can only get one. So you can technically do that. Hermit Druid is not allowed for good reason.
No.
But I know. There's been a little bit of talk of maybe it's okay to unban, but people are slightly scarred from the nonsense Hermit Druid can do. So, but Undercity Informer is something you could do. It is just a lot harder than you'd think. One of the weird rules bits is that MDFCs have been made so that while technically the official rules of Magic the Gathering is that you only pay attention to the front side when determining mana cost. However, it's a bit weird for a format to have that is built around having 3 or less to have Tybalt running around.
Yeah. That was going to be one of my next questions. Yeah.
Yes. So for Tiny Leaders, both the front and back of an MDFC have to be of mana value 3 or less.
Not combined, individually.
No, individually.
Yeah.
However, you get to some weird stuff. So like Adventures, for example, that doesn't apply. So you can totally, if you really want, you can play Bramble Familiar. It's not fantastic in the format, but you can. The new Final Fantasy towns, they are legal.
Yeah.
They're possibly a bit slow, but they're there.
But
and the other card that everybody inevitably asks about is Fire and Ice. And the way rules work, because yes, they are combined mana value for split cards, and we have not made it so that, as long as each side, it is according to Wizards. Yeah. Yes. According to Wizards, it's combined mana value, and so we're keeping it as combined mana value.
Right.
So sadly, no Fire and Ice. You can Wear and Tear. It is an option for Boros sideboards. And I don't think I mentioned it, but there's a 10-card sideboard.
Yeah, that was actually not brought up. Good. I'm happy you brought this up.
Yes.
Is with the sideboard, it's a best of 3 format. 1v1 best.
Yes. It is a best of 3 format generally. You can always play a best of 1 if you want, but it is a best of 3 format. And that actually really helps with a lot of things. With like Commander, if you want to play it at higher levels, you have to mainboard these weird cards to preemptively hate out your opponent. And while you can still do that, sometimes it is absolutely worth mainboarding things. Like, for example, Graveyard Hate is kind of a necessity because you have Titans running around, you have these strong graveyard cards. Now, Uro you can't have as a commander because Uro as a commander is stupid. But but Uro in the 49 is perfectly allowed and good.
Okay.
So
that's what I like
basically, and especially with MH3, with Nethergoyfs and Barrowgoyfs, having main deck Grave Hate is worth it.
Right.
But there is this interesting part of things with mana value 3 or less and 50 cards. You can't really afford to have all that much in main board to incidentally deal with things.
Right.
And so that's what the sideboard's for. And having that 10 card sideboard, we don't need a 15 card sideboard. We're a 50 card deck. It is hard enough to sideboard with singleton deck building restrictions because it is, I will say, that is the one hardest thing about the format is figuring out how to sideboard for it. It is, I'm so glad that there is a sideboard, but it is so hard to decide, oh, but my precious baby card that I love so much and I'm testing out, it kind of needs to be sideboarded out for this matchup.
Yeah,
so
that's going to be really tough for those of you, kind of listening and not understanding, like, because in a 60 card constructed format, you have up to 4 copies of a card.
Yes.
You could reasonably keep a certain number of them to hedge against something. So very specific example I came across yesterday. Learning standard is you have what is it? Something lockdown. I'm forgetting. It's white.
Temporary lockdown. Yeah.
Temporary lockdown. You could reasonably keep that in your deck against a huge amount of matchups, but take out a large number of them and still have the effect. You draw through most of your deck playing Azorius Omniscience. You will find it. But when it comes to a format like this, if you take out a card, you generally speaking likely don't have that effect anymore.
Yes.
If you have a mana doubler, that is your only copy of it, likely. If you have a Mox Jasper, that is your only Mox. You know what I mean? Like, that is your only technical source of fast mana. So that is where sideboarding becomes difficult. You have to kind of go back and forth on how valuable is this in this matchup, which I think is great because this, like, good mulliganing is a valuable skill in 1v1.
Yes.
Not that translatable in multiplayer formats, but a valuable skill regardless in limited and or in constructed. 60.
And it is just a very unique format in a lot of ways, and the sideboard is definitely one of those big ways that it is just different from most other formats. Right.
No, and I love that about this format. And I guess, like, with all this in mind, when it comes to sideboarding, bans, everything, how do we play? Like, all this yap, are we, you kind of brought it up a little bit. You talked about cockatrice a little bit, but talk to me about Discord and webcam, spell table type variants, Magic Online. Like, how are we accessing Tiny Leaders Reborn?
So on the Discord, our main source of gameplay online is going to be Cockatrice. It's not as fancy as Magic Online or Magic Arena. It doesn't do your triggers for you. It is just a standard tabletop. But that also means that if you accidentally miscast something, or if you misplay a land, so long as your opponent's fine with it, you can always fix that. It also makes infinite combos much easier. Instead of having to do a manual click through of everything and worry about timing out and stuff like that, you just say present the loop and they say, yep, I'm dead. And so and it's completely free. You just download the app, you download your list, and you play. And so it's very accessible in that way. We do have some amount of people that prefer Spell Table, and so you are able to play Spell Table. We are currently figuring out ways to make it so that people that want to play Spell Table can talk and can, like, ping and let other people that want to play Spell Table know, because again, our format's mostly playing on Cockatrice. Right. But it is definitely worth playing if you like playing on Spell Table.
Is there has there been some level of exploration in something that I've come across recently, more on Spell Table, is Mox Field's Tester, Has that been something that's been explored, like in Moxfield UK?
I've heard about some people doing that, and so that's something that once we have the whole spell table looking for games channel up and running, which I'm pushing to the rest of the committee, that probably is worth doing.
Yeah. Well, hey, folks, everyone listening to this, the only way we're going to get this out there is if more people get in Discord, play the format, and push for the way you want to play. If you don't want to play Cosmerian, if you have another method that's reasonable, again, like Moxfield's kind of deck builder and tester, I know many of you spell table players out there have tried something like that as well. Again, you literally just take your Moxfield link, it shuffles it up, you get a board, you can click the phases. It's actually really accessible. So if you guys haven't explored it, something to think about. But again, they're only going to think about it if you join the Discord. Play the format.
The more people that ask for spell table stuff, the more likely the other people can make it easier for spell table players.
Exactly.
We are setting up spell table pings. So if you want to play on spell table, I would say in the next, let's say 48 hours, it will be available. Well, 48 hours as of this being recorded, which is probably going to be something like 24 hours.
Yeah, full transparency. We're recording this on the 16th. This will probably go up on the 17th, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so if you join the Discord and want to play on spell table, the odds of being able to play on spell table and finding other people that want to play on spell table is incredibly high.
Yeah.
Exactly. Magic Online, I have heard that it is possible to play Tiny Leaders on Magic Online. I don't know the exact details of that. I'm pretty sure there is some sort of way to enter some sort of custom rule set and stuff like that.
And stuff like that. Yeah.
So if you want to,
I'm 90% sure.
Yes, you can definitely play it on MTGO. You're probably not going to be able to play it with many other people, but if you have like a friend that are used to playing on MTGO, you can do that.
Right.
And yeah, I think those are like the main ways. Obviously, we're proxy friendly. There's not a lot of LGSs and stuff like that do play Tiny Leaders, although we're working on that. As I mentioned, Northern California, if you're in Northern California, there are LGSs that do play Tiny Leaders and have a pretty strong showing of it.
Yeah, and I do want to remind everyone that, as we said, Tiny Leaders originally, not Tiny Leaders Reborn, is an official format of Magic the Gathering. And actually, the announcement article that I'm going to link down below, it's called Tiny Leaders Big Fun. It's still on the Mothership website. It was made by Gavin Verhey. It was written by Gavin Verhey. It was announced by him, Pauper format panel leader, big voice in the Magic community. I'm pretty sure if this format gets big enough, we might be able to light a fire under Gavin's butt here. So I
think it is perfectly possible.
Yeah. Get it.
I will say, if you're used to Moxfield, there is a bit of complexity with Moxfield. The Moxfield is currently going off of the Tiny Leaders rules and not the Tiny Leaders Reborn rules.
Right,
so cards like we recently, about a year ago, unbanned Mana Drain.
Right.
Because Counterspell just wasn't cutting it, and having a strictly better Counterspell actually is pretty okay when you can only get up to 3 mana from it.
Right.
And so whenever you put that in on Moxfield, it'll say, oh, this isn't legal. It is. We're working with Moxfield. One of the problems is that they want the original Tiny Leaders crew to be on board, although the original Tiny Leaders crew abandoned the format like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
so it's a bit difficult.
Yeah.
The more people we have, and the more real of a format we are, the easier it'll be to solve that issue.
Join the Discord link down below.
Yes.
I'm gonna have a link that does not expire. Get to the rules, talk about it on socials, and just play it. Just play it. That's it.
Yes.
Get the voice out there. That, even if it's not like, I think a lot of people underestimate the idea of voices, where you don't need to necessarily join the Discord, but, just playing it at your local game stores gets people talking about it. Someone has a conversation with someone, and then someone eventually down the line joins the Discord. You know what I mean? Like voices do matter, and playing it does matter. Spreading the word does matter.
Yeah.
No, so I like completely agree. Like having accessible lines is important, but also just getting yourself, the viewer, to get in and try it out is important. Ultimately, if it's not for you, it's not for you, right? We're not holding you to it. This is not, we're not trapping you in a timeshare buy right now. Okay, this is just another way for you to access the cards that you already have, play them in a new light, try out that commander that may or may not be broken in your format. By the way, VV Orniteer is, as far as I'm aware, legal in this format. Not yet.
Yes,
banned.
Absolutely. Not yet banned. I will say that Ral Storm has been doing really well in the format. Yeah.
Okay.
And so it is possible that Vivi will be competing with Ral there. It is possible that Ral is just a bit too good for Vivi to stand a chance. We'll have to see.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just a great format with just a variety of interesting meta options that are constantly in flux, constantly changing. And yeah, I would definitely recommend you check it out, because it's the sort of thing that, while it might sound confusing on paper, or you're a bit hesitant to it, or you're used to the old tiny leaders, this is less of a problem now that it's been a decade. But I think part of the thing that was holding it back from growing initially was people are thinking, when they hear tiny leaders, they think of Tiny Leaders Original, which there is still the crux, the core of Tiny Leaders is still there, but the parts that made it a solved format is just not present. And so people go, oh, Tiny Leaders, that's the solved format, right? And I just have to remind them, no, it really isn't. Every month there is something new that's going on.
Right.
And because we're dealing with a small player base and dealing with constantly new commanders, Final Fantasy, I have the only other, beyond my initial video that got a lot of traction, the only other video I have is a live stream where I had some of the other crew of the Tiny Leaders Committee ranking the 87 new commanders in Final Fantasy for Tiny Leaders, which is an absurd amount. Now, most of them aren't any good, but
right.
Still,
yeah. I mean, that's just like with any, like, there's always going to be the most optimal 5 landfall commanders, commanders, big mana command, whatever. There's always going to be a best version, but that doesn't mean you can't find a unique way to take your commander, your tiny leader, and have an edge with it, right? Like, yes, it might technically be worse, but for some reason, if you find X combination of cards, you have a way to shine in the format, right? And with a lower deck count, you are going to be able to potentially find that consistency a lot better through, your mana, some amount of tutors, all that stuff. It's there. There is a way to get your commanders to shine. Now, one thing I want to do is, before we head into the last section of the video, talking about the future, like what, Cosmerian, your hopes are, and maybe the other kind of, we'll call them board members, the executives of Tiny Leaders Reborn, what their hopes are for the format. I want to talk through some numbers. So initially, when the format was announced, and this is rough math here, it was roughly announced and kind of popularized around 2013 to 2015. The article that I referenced earlier from Gavin Verhey was released early February in 2015. At that time, if you do a Scryfall search, at that time, there are only 125 cards, roughly, that were converted mana cost 3 or less, that are creatures and are legendary. 120.
Yes.
If you add planeswalkers into that mix, 7. Literally 7 converted mana cost 3 or less planeswalkers at that time that could be your tiny leader. Now at literally 2015, mid 2015 and on, there are 972 creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less that are legendary, and planeswalkers, there are approximately 68. 68 includes Aminatu, the Fate Shifter. That includes, Dak Faden, which is kind of an OG here. I'm really interested in how Invasion of New Phyrexia works here, because that's technically a planeswalker on the flip side, but, that's something different, because that's a battle.
Can't really have a battle as your commander, but
fair enough. And you have so many like Ob Nixilis, the adversary, as you mentioned, Ral Monsoon Mage. Is Oko Thief of Khans banned?
Yes, definitely banned
Thank God.
everywhere. You can't have it in the 49. You can't have it as commander. No more elking for you.
Thank God. Thank God. Valky
Yes.
already doesn't work. Renin 6
Yep.
banned? Yes, no?
Banned as commander, still legal in the 49. It is a lot easier to deal with when there is one and when you can't consistently wasteland lock your opponent.
Love it.
And so it's still good, still very good. Potentially bannably so, although it's something that we had on our radar, and then because the format has now, I mean, what, that's an MH1 card?
Yeah.
We're up to MH3. The power creep has gotten to the point where we currently don't have, we still are like looking at Renin 6 with a little bit of a side eye because it is a good card. But
everyone should be looking at Renin 6 with side eye, by the way.
yes.
Okay, everyone should be. This card is absolutely busted. I don't care. Everyone watching this, someone watching this video is going to be a modern player. They're going to be an old legacy vintage player. Renin 6 is still a powerful card. Stop. Ignore the power creep. It's a 2-mana planeswalker that does way too much. Way too much.
And the only thing that is holding it back in this format is that you can only have one of them.
Yeah.
And so once you get rid of it, it's for the most part gone. Theoretically, there is a way that you could technically get it back. There are some reanimate effects that can hit planeswalkers.
Right.
But realistically, it's a one and done deal. It's still bonkers. It's still nuts. But at this point, everything's kind of nuts. You have Nethergoyf, which is like a 1-mana 6/7 sometimes. So
everyone watching this video has my permission to play a Johnny Nakatl Pariah as their tiny leader. You just won't be playing against me. I actually hate that card.
Fun fact about that one.
Right.
Fun fact about that one. A Johnny Nakatl Pariah was banned along with 4th Aerlingus as commander.
Oh, thanks.
So
thank God.
It was atrocious. It was so powerful. It was a tier 0 commander and took over so many leagues just because you could flip it turn 2 super easily and just kind of win on the spot.
Like,
so it's still there, but not as commander.
For those of you that don't understand why, please go play maybe max 3 games against Boros Energy and Modern and tell me you like that card in any way, shape, or form, in any game of Magic whatsoever. Forget Tiny Leaders. Go play against it in any semblance of consistency. And imagine having someone trying to replicate that in a single format. Because it's very easy to do so, by the way. It's very easy to do so. That card is busted. Anyway, talk to me about the future or your hopes for the format past this video. What are you hoping for in terms of the growth of the Discord, the format in the immediate future, and your big bad hopes of, if you win the lottery, where's the format going?
So this format has always been a bit of the underdog format. I'm sure there are more niche formats out there, although this is very close to one of the nichest formats that you could play.
But
now, hopefully,
it was one that was made official. That's the thing, right?
Yes.
That's what people have to remember. There
to a degree,
official Wizards backing on this at a point.
Yes.
And now, if not more than ever, there's so much more support. So I want to highlight that. This is not a made up format that someone is trying to push because of some whatever. No. There was actual legs to stand on here. But
yes. And at this point, we are getting more and more people. The YouTube video has attracted, I think, something like 60 new players to the Discord, which, might not sound like a lot, but we are really a tiny format in both name and in the reality of things. And hopefully we can be a large, tiny format. And so I do think we are now living in a reality where give it a few months and tiny leaders can start being talked about again as not this thing that died 10 years ago, as a thing that is still being played and is still growing and thriving because oh god
did the mic fall?
it may or may not have fallen. There may or may not have been some mic issues.
Right.
So basically Tiny Leaders is a real format and is growing and thriving and hopefully will continue to grow and thrive. Whether I want it, whether I can see it being an officially sanctioned format, I don't know. It was a real format before, and it could totally be again. Although I do like the idea of, at the very least for the rules committee and stuff to still be controlled by the people.
That's a whole different thing.
Yes, that's a whole different story. The Commander was very much a real format, and for the longest time until the whole Commander debacle happened, was controlled by non-Wizards of the Coast folks. And this mic, it was doing so well.
Yeah, right.
It was doing so well.
It doesn't. Wizards of the Coast doesn't want you to speak on their takeover of tiny leaders. They don't want you to speak on it. Oh.
Okay. We're just gonna be holding this mic and keeping it from slipping out.
I'm not editing this out. Whoever's listening this far in the video, this is your extra juicy bit. That's on.
Yep.
Go on.
So, beyond, as long as we can get our mics to stay working and we can keep talking about it, I think Tiny Leaders is in a good spot. And I am frankly surprised at the amount of traction that this format has gotten recently, and hopefully will continue to get. This being one of many stepping stones that will push the format into the limelight.
And I think it will. I am always surprised whenever I make a Tiny Leaders joke in any one of my shorts or my TikToks, like the amount of people that will be like, Tiny Leaders mentioned, or like, but really, let's talk about Tiny Leaders. I'm like, the amount of people that actually know what that is, and or have played it. I thought, why not? This video came out, someone came into the Mill Discord and linked it. I was like, hey, yo, someone's actually trying this. I love this.
Yeah. And I think the thing that was holding it back before was that stigma around Tiny Leaders as this butt end of a joke format that was great until it really wasn't.
Right.
And now it's been 10 years. We have a new format. It has been going strong. It is a real thing. I don't think that's going to be that much of an issue. Like, obviously the old heads, I'm going to expect skepticism, and I'm sure somebody's going to comment under this video of saying like, but old Tiny Leaders, it's a soft format. You don't have to. Right. It's not good.
Someone's gonna bring up Missouri Renegade Leader and or Unofenza. I don't care, y'all. I don't care what you did. There's 1,000 Tiny Leaders now. It was literally like 200 back then.
Fun fact: Unofenza has now, with the creation of Felithar, it was for a long time a great Tiny Leader, kind of the best one in Abzan, which unfortunately it still wasn't very good. It was like maybe tier 2 at best, but if you wanted to play Abzan, it was kind of the best one there. I think Felithar is now just Anafenza, but better. And, Azuri, elves, you pretty much don't have to worry about elves. The closest you'll get is maybe a Tyvar Jubilant Brawler deck, which is frankly, in my eyes, in my eyes, a much more interesting elf ball commander than just mono green elves go bonk.
Right.
And so, it's just a great format that is always getting new and exciting things to do.
Yeah, and I think, like, again, just really highlighting, like, that was a different era. Like, folks, do you remember what Magic was in 2015? Like, people listening to this video, I don't think you truly understand what Magic was in 2015. Folks, I use this as a marker all the time. Fatal Push was not a legal Magic card. Fatal Push was not a... Fatal Push was in concept. Fatal Push was on a whiteboard somewhere. Right? Based on Wizards of the Coast development time in 2015. We did not. Tarmogoyf was a $200 card. That's a joke. That card's doo-doo caca now. What are we talking about? Have you seen Barrowgoyf? Has anyone played against a resolved Barrowgoyf? You don't know what Magic is until you played against a resolved Barrowgoyf. That card is ridiculous. Like, it's so different where Magic is now. Tiny Leaders is such a wide open format. Yes. Okay, look. I can't deny there is a world in a constructed 1v1 environment where there could be a quote unquote solved metagame, but you have not solved that. You, the listener of this video, have not solved that. You have not played this format. You have not played it enough. You have not explored all 1,000 commanders or close to it to even solve this format. So if you want to prove us wrong, if you want to dead this format, go play it. Go play it.
Feel free.
Go ahead.
Feel free. I recommend you try your best to solve the format. And I'll be real, if you do, we're probably just going to ban the commander and then it'll be all fine and dandy. I don't think you can. Yeah, exactly. Like we have an active committee, which was also part of the issue with Tiny Leaders original, is that the committee kind of stepped back from it.
Right.
And here we are not doing that. We are here. We are vigilant. We are listening to you. We are seriously considering things. Let's see. How many members of the committee are there right now? We have, I believe we're sitting at a healthy 16 or so. Folks. So, it's not huge by any means, but you have a lot of different voices that are being talked about, and we are here to listen to the format and listen to what people want. The goal, first and foremost, is to make sure that everybody's happy with the format. We are too small of a format to alienate people. Right. So if there is some nonsense that is going on, we're going to try our best to address it in some way. Right. One of the problem cards recently is Ketramos. Oh, it is it's a card that you don't really see much elsewhere, but it's the sort of thing where if you can run Ghost Vacuum, you can run Relic of Progenitus. Relic of Progenitus with Ketramos is a 2-mana draw 4. Yeah,
2-mana draw 4. Yeah.
Which is
all my black white modern blink players will love this one. Yeah.
And so it is a crazy card, people. It's currently very controversial. It might end up going, but as a Final Fantasy, it's still perfectly legal. But we are hearing people talk about it, and we're not saying, nah, it's fine. We are saying, let's wait a bit, see what happens, see how it changes the format. Because it is an interesting card. It's a new thing. It's unique at what it does, and it brings control into the limelight even more, which is really good because mid-range is the bulk of the format and really good. But we are not a sit back and let the format run itself sort of committee. We are here. We are active to help make the format as fun and as interesting as possible.
I love that. Okay, well, I think this is a great place to start to kind of wrap this video up here. And, again, just invite people to join the Discord, watch the video. It's all going to be linked down below. And if you want to prove us wrong, or you want to prove us right and find just another great way to play Magic that has that 1v1 feel, has that commander feel, just isn't stuck behind a metagame or whatever yet. Anyway, play that Tiny Leaders. Cosmerian, I'm going to leave it up to you here. Why don't you take us away? What are your final closing statements here? What do you want people to think about when they think Tiny Leaders Reborn or Tiny Leaders, whatever it is?
Yeah.
What are your hopes, immediate hopes for the viewers after this video?
My hope is that you at least
your hope there goes the microphone stays where it is.
Yes, my hope is that the microphone survives the rest of this interview.
Right.
But basically, my hope in the immediate future beyond the microphone is to have more people just check it out and give it a chance, because it is a format that I went into 2 years ago by seeing a Fish MTG video, who was for the longest time the kind of face of Tiny Leaders, and she's since retired a bit and has stepped back, but she's still there and she's great. But basically, I have went into the format 2 years ago. I've been playing it every single week. If not, I've been attending to it pretty much daily. It is my main format at this point because it is just such a fun and unique experience that blends if you like Legacy but don't like modern, like crazy win on turn 1, win on turn 2 type decks, or if you're playing Commander and you want something that's a bit faster, a bit more impactful of plays with more thoughtful deck building, and you don't have to deal with the weird politics of Commander.
Right.
And if you want, you can still deal with the weird politics of Commander. I'm not stopping you. But yeah, just check out.
Make your weird deals in your 1v1 game,
Yeah.
however that works. But
or play it, you can play it for people. We have fun little casual events where we use, like, one of the fan favorites in the Discord is Tiny Leader's two-headed giant, and we call it two-headed gnome, where we just have a two-headed giant but with Tiny Leader's decks. So you could do whatever. It is a great format, and it's tiny now, but hopefully it can grow into something bigger.
Folks, it's just another way to play. That's all it is, right?
Yes.
We're not trying to annex anything. At the end of the day, there is no other TCG on the market that gives you this many ways to play. This many formats, this many variants, sub-variants. I mean, the millions of ways that you can play Commander, let alone, right? Like, this is just another way, as we've said plenty of times and highlighted plenty of times, another way to play the Magic cards that you're already playing, that you're already enjoying, that you're already using, just to find a different home, to find a different angle.
Exactly.
And again, it's quote unquote restricted to converted mana cost 3 or less, but restriction breeds creativity. How do you 100%. Go about what you want underneath a new blanket of rules? And in many ways, that Tiny Leader is there to do that. And with thousands of cards, tens of thousands of cards under converted mana cost 3 or less, you can find a way to do what you want to do without playing Warp World for all of you Chaos players.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is where we'll end off the video. Cosmerian, appreciate you being the voice here for the Tiny Leaders Reborn Discord. Again, highlighting, I am in no way getting paid or anything for this. I am just an ex-Tiny Leaders player that is so happy to see a new effort being brought onto a format that I used to know and love. So you get a little lucky with me. I just want to see the format grow again. I would love to see the great return of Tiny Leaders in its reborn form.
Hey, if you want to hop on the server, play some games, we're always down to have somebody that played before and is here playing it again.
With Tasha's Hideous Laughter being banned, I have to go back to the drawing board. I'm not going to lie. So I'm going to have to rethink how I want to make Mill in this format. But I will break Mill in this format somehow.
I believe in you. I believe in you. There needs to be Mill in the format in some way.
And there is, for those of you that are going to get mad at this, yes, Emrakul Dion's Sworn is, of course, nowhere near legal in this format, but Endurance is, and Gaia's Blessing is. Wheel of Sun and Moon is. There's some crap. There's some stuff.
Yeah, there's nonsense.
There's stuff. There's ways you can stop me. I won't promise you it'll work at all. But
I believe in you. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Cosmerian, thank you for joining me. And everyone watching this video, as you know, leave a like on this video, comment what you're thinking about Tiny Leaders. And when you go to watch the other video, it's not just about leaving a like and subscribing, but like let it run in the background if you've already watched it, right? If you're watching it, whatever, like show YouTube that someone is watching it. YouTube doesn't know if you're watching it on silent or not. If you don't care about Tiny Leaders, go watch the video in the background, leave it on. Help it boost in the algorithm. That's it. You don't even need to play it. You know how you can help? Just go watch the video or go leave it.
Yep, go watch the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel.
Do everything.
It's still a good time if you're just spectating the format.
Right. Exactly. Just being a viewer from afar is still being someone that is supporting Magic overall. Thanks, everyone. I don't know how to end videos, so I'm just going to cut it off right here. Cosmerian, thank you.
Thank you so much.